In Austin, Texas, hundreds of protesters took to the campus at University of Texas, Austin, to voice their opposition to Israel's policies and the war in Gaza. Texas state troopers arrested dozens of students during a protest that broke out on campus yesterday. Here's one pro-Palestine protester speaking on the organizing.
They're getting arrested for just like their support for Palestine, and they're not really even doing anything. It's just their presence. They're just trying to like get people afraid. But our strength is in numbers, and what we're seeing right now is that everyone's like grouping up together for one cause.
UT Austin President Jay Hartzell praised law enforcement for showing extraordinary restraint. Pro-Israel protesters were also present at the event. Texas Governor Greg Abbott responded to the protest, writing on X, "Arrests being made right now and will continue until the crowd disperses. These protesters belong in jail. Anti-Semitism will not be tolerated in Texas, period. Students joining in hate-filled anti-Semitic protests at any public college or university in Texas should be expelled." Meanwhile, here's what Abbott had to say about free speech on college campuses just a couple of years ago.
Some colleges are banning free speech on college campuses. Well, no more, because I'm about to sign a law that protects free speech on college campuses in Texas. Shouldn't have to do it. First Amendment guarantees it. Now it's law in Texas.
Republican Senate candidate Justin Amamos wrote on X, "According to Governor Abbott's own post, he is violating the First Amendment. A governor can't lawfully arrest people for protesting or for hate speech. If he's arresting them for other reasons, then he should say so. If he's arresting them for their speech, then he's violating the law, and his actions threaten everyone in the state, including everyone he claims to be protecting." Reporter at the Texas Observer, Stephen Michelli, wrote on X saying, "I've seen no credible reporting of actual anti-Semitic incidents at the UT Austin protest. What I can tell you is that I've reported on numerous neo-Nazi events, and Greg Abbott never once tried to put any of them in jail." He went on to, in that thread, to link to all of the various neo-Nazi events he has covered in Austin, which are openly anti-Semitic, as opposed to pro-Palestine events, which are not against Jewish people, but against the conduct of the foreign government.
Well, but the conduct doesn't matter, because the conduct can be hateful or not, but you have a First Amendment right to protest.
But the point that I'm making is that, no, the point I'm making is that even people who are not anti-Semitic are getting charges of anti-Semitic used to justify arresting them, even though actual anti-Semites have been allowed to walk in peace. So what do you make of this? Justin Amamos, as someone he's been a guest on the show, he often is very kind of fair and is willing to buck the trends of his party, oftentimes coming out here calling out Greg Abbott's free speech hypocrisy. And we didn't show the full range of video that students have been taking and putting up on social media, because it's difficult for us to get rights and access to it, all the student journalism. But I will say it looks like lines of stormtroopers that have taken over the campus, and some of the most dystopian scenes that we've seen at any of these college campuses so far, public university.
Sure. You can arrest people for violence. You can take down encampments that are just subject to time, place, and manner restrictions. You can arrest people if they're blocking entrances and exits to the campus. But yes, you cannot just arrest people for engaging in speech and expression, even if it is anti-Semitic. It doesn't matter. It could be racist. It could be homophobic. It could be anti-women. It could be whatever it is. The content does not render it unprotected under the First Amendment. Yeah, his tweet is clearly wrong on the face of it. He says we will not tolerate anti-Semitism in Texas, but actually the First Amendment, the law, that special First Amendment protection applied just to Texas that he signed, additionally makes it so that you can't arrest people for speech, even if it is anti-Semitic. You can arrest people for anti-Semitic violence. In fact, you can arrest people for violence regardless of whether it's anti-Semitic or not. Like, we have to get away from these content-based restrictions on behavior having to do with what the political valence is, what the person's actually saying. Speech and thought are not illegal. actions are legal. And this is something that people on all sides of the political spectrum fall prey to when it is, their own, when it's people they're sympathetic to are purportedly the victims of what's going on. They say we need special protections for identity-based protections for X, Y, and Z. Obviously, Democrats do a lot of this. Republicans are now very much doing it with Jewish speech and identity. It is not speech, it is action. Perfectly fine to arrest people if they're engaging in violence, although they got to be subject to due process and all that kind of thing. You can't just say, "Oh, you're engaged in violence," and arrest you. And I don't give the state enough leeway to presume that that's not happening. But it's clear that we're going down a very
I think the scary part is that this does seem like content-based speech suppression when you have Gavin McInnes, an openly avowed anti-Semite and white supremacist, walking around Columbia's campuses, not getting arrested when students
he should not. Okay, but he should not be arrested either.
But I completely understand that you think that should not happen. I'm talking about what is happening. What is happening is that Gavin McInnes, an avowed white supremacist, an anti-Semite, is walking around Columbia's campus while actual dues-paying students at Columbia University, who again are not anti-Semitic but are protesting the actions of a foreign government, Israel, against the people of Palestine, are being arrested, have been arrested, zip-tied, and hauled off to jail. FIRE, a free speech organization, which you cite frequently, made I think a really good statement on this, tweeting out, "The chilling show of force at the University of Texas at Austin is a disproportionate response to an apparently peaceful protest. Sending in a phalanx of law enforcement threatens protected speech where it should be at its most free, a public university like UT Austin. Unfortunately, Governor Abbott's public commentary makes this disregard for the First Amendment's protection of political speech clear. We encourage those whose First Amendment rights are threatened at UT Austin or elsewhere to contact FIRE."
Yes, I agree. That is my statement as well. I mean, so Gavin McInnes, if they're restricting outside people onto campus, just as a general rule, not based on who you are, what you're saying, then I don't know why he's on campus. If right now the campus is only open to students and I guess some reporters, then he shouldn't be there. If they're just letting people onto campus, then he, like anyone else, if he's just engaged in speech, no matter how vile, he's allowed to be there. He has previously been invited by some fringe conservative groups to speak on various campuses. Usually when that happens, he gets protested and sometimes physically attacked by protesters, and they don't have a right to do that. And he can speak if he's invited on a variety of college campuses, no matter how loathsome he is, or he's been. I mean, I think he's been. I think he might have been arrested at various times. I don't quite know his status or his group. He was forced to disaffiliate from the Proud Boys because of various January 6th involved things.
So what I was going to say is that to your point about who's allowed on campus, as a guest that we just interviewed, you should check him out. Jonathan Ben Minicum was talking about who's allowed and who isn't allowed on campus. It's obviously clear that several Republican House members have been allowed on campus. I think it was every Republican House member in New York visited campus as a part of these remarks that were led by Mike Johnson. He was met with a crowd of boos. But obviously, some people are being invited on as guests to speak, including all of these representatives. And I do, and it would be interesting to know whether or not
I should.
As whatever allowance, whoever allowed that, whether or not Gavin McInnes, whether or not.
I want to make sure I didn't misspeak about his legal status. I don't believe he was actually arrested. He faked his arrest, and he was not a defendant in the August 2019 trial of the Proud Boys. There might be more there, but I want to make sure I don't, open myself up to having said something wrong about it.
All right, well, we'll continue to follow. This is an unraveling situation. There is now footage out of a student that's being handcuffed and tased by police at Emory College. So do stay tuned. There's a lot more to cover about these college protests going forward today and into the week. Stick around. More Rising coming up after this.